Viewers, you're watching the Policy Times. I'm your host, Akram. It's very interesting. Life is full of experiences. Sometimes you cannot experience all your learnings together, because if you start experiencing all your failures or all your successes, then you end up doing that only. So sometimes we take lessons of others as part of our learning, so that without personally experiencing it, we learn from others' mistakes or other successes. We have Mr. Kevin Sullivan, who is based in Miami now, and he has helped kickstart many multi-million dollar businesses. And his life itself is a full of experiences and journey. And after his massive success and failures put together, he aims now to share his ideas, and that is what is also the aim of Policy Times. Policy Time wants to or aims to discuss ideas, stories, experiences of 7 billion people across the world. Kevin, welcome to Policy Times, and thank you for joining us. I want to start with the very basic point. Addiction is a very important and a very important part. People don't realize that they are addicted. It's a very strong word, and it affects success or failures of individuals globally. How do you
Absolutely.
define addiction? What is the prominence, control, or impact of addiction in our personal and professional life?
Thank you, Akram. Great to join you this morning. That's a wonderful question, and my personal understanding and dealing my own experience with addiction is this. I look around and I say, well, we could just be very basic here and say, if you're breathing, you're addicted, and there are 7 billion of us here. And the thing about that is, I just believe each one of us is addicted to all kinds of different things. But in this particular instance, I'll talk about my story of being attached to, that may be one language. What am I attached to? You know, and the subtlety of addiction, and when I remember I went to look that word up in the dictionary, and one time it said, so as not to be detected. It is so slow moving, and it will come through any particular angle it can. And so the story in a physical way with addiction, whether it be to food, whether it be to sex, whether it be to alcohol, whether it be to drugs, there's a physical thing that happens even with someone that is shopping and buying things that they know that they're buying as they're buying them. That this is not, the rush of someone that will go to a casino and gamble. There's a physical rush that takes place in the body. And once that occurs, and for me, maybe it would be taking a couple of drinks, okay, or having some drug in my body. There's a physical craving that takes over, and it is
Right.
not connected to what's going on in my mind. They're not connected, and therefore, because of that, Akram, it's beyond anything I can think to stop it. So if the conversation on addiction stopped there, that would be a really quite something to try to wrap your head and your spirit around that element. But then we add to that, let's say in addiction, the person is able to stop and they realize that they have a problem, or someone intercedes, then the addiction takes another space, and now it becomes something that's going on in the mind. And my mind has the ability to forget that all of these horrible, terrible things happen when I'm in the addiction. So it will tell me, maybe it's been 30 days, or I haven't had a drink in 7 years, or in my case was 24 years. And
Right.
I go to a wedding reception and I order a soda water with lime, but as I'm turning away, as the bartender's telling me, I only serve wine and beer at this table, I'm physically turning to the table where he tells me I can get the soda water with lime, and I see a Heineken beer, and I told the bartender without even thinking, Let me have one of those after not having a drink for 24 years. There was no thought involved. So there was like a blank spot there. And somewhere in there, once I began to drink, I said, well, you know what? This will be okay. It's been a long time since I've had a drink. I'll be able to do it. I was awfully young. And all of the stories that the mind creates to go back into these experiences again, which hurt us, you know? And so I continue to repeat these behaviors. And so that's the thing. And then we have a group of people around us that are now being affected. And then, you know, the larger, you know, what are all the things that I'm not able to do that I came here to do? And I begin to fall out of my shoes, of the story I came to tell. And then I become a fraud and a liar because I can't, there's maybe there are days or weeks that I can't account for. And you're saying, where were you? Like in my case, if you wanted to know where I was between the years of 2008 and 2013, I was nowhere you wanted to know about. So I had to give you a story.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Kevin, now, what are the different kinds of forms of addiction? Because with the rise of technology, our forms of addiction has changed. Today,
Yes.
some people are addicted to social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah.
LinkedIn,
Yeah.
then drug, alcohol. So, what are the different forms of addictions that we should be careful about, or we should know about? And to what level now we should realize that, okay, now you are addicted and you need medication and recovery?
Well, this is really a very interesting topic as well, because when we're talking to an individual that's addicted, okay, I deal with a lot of alcoholics, a lot of addicts, and when you're dealing with them, despite everything you can say to them, they're not going to believe what you're saying. They can't hear you talking to them. So once again, we go back into this conversation of isolation. I'm trying to talk to Akram about a problem that he has, but he's going to deflect me. He may try to rearrange the conversation to get me focused on something else. And then if that doesn't work and I continue to push him, then he may get irritated with me. Okay. He may be able to take, if I know him well, you know, he may take parts of my life history and try to throw them at me, you know. So maybe I'm working with someone and they know when my daughter was 4 months old that I bounced a child support check. And they may say, well, what kind of father were you? And they'll try to push me back that way to get me to back off. And if that doesn't work, then the person will just shut down and refuse to talk. So it's very, very difficult to try to get through to the actual person that's broken in that way. Okay, so I believe that the conversation may begin outside that little circle with the community, the family, the employers, people like that really, that need to be educated on, listen, what you're dealing with here is somebody that, you know, you may think has some power, you know, or control or some choice in the matter, but they don't. That's the baffling feature of this disease, is the utter inability to leave that thing alone that's hurting them, even if they have a deep wish to stop, they cannot stop. So it's really tough, you know. So it's just a very difficult conversation in addiction. They're in the behavior, you know, so they can't see what they're doing. They can't hear you trying to talk to them. And just like we say, an athlete on the field, they're so focused because they're in the game. There may be 50,000 people in the stands cheering, but that athlete, if he's focused on what he's doing, that is paramount to everything else that's going on. So with addiction, that may mean the loss of a job, the loss of your wife and children that you love very much. But once I'm in that addiction, that drug or that alcohol or that behavior becomes everything. So we're talking about the other types of addictions. I was on my scooter this morning coming back to the office here, and there was a girl walking across the street on a red light. Okay? On a red light in full traffic, looking at her cell phone. She had it 4 inches away from her face. I honked and she looked at me like I was crazy. I said, "You're walking on a red light. Listen, you need to be careful." And she just was oblivious to what I was talking about. And that's the disease. It's just something to witness.
Yeah,
There's no,
sometimes it becomes risky, life risky, in fact,
yeah.
and damaging. Very interesting. Okay, now, what is the recovery process when someone is addicted to this, and how do we then uh, remove the addictive personalities in this? With this, I also want to ask, what is this?
Yeah.
What is the addiction trends in America? How is it observed, or how is it been considered seriously in US? In United.
Okay. So the, do me a favor. Can you ask that question again?
So I have mixed actually two questions on this
Yes.
because they are somehow connected. What is the recovery process, and what is the trend of addictive personalities in United States?
Okay. Okay. So in terms of treatment,
In terms of treatment, like
okay.
how can we how
Yeah.
can someone come out of addiction or addictive personalities?
Well, this is interesting. I'm going to say some things that maybe everyone knows and understands, and obviously we're going to talk about the treatment industry, and the system is a little bit fractured because we're just dealing with pain and trauma, and a lot of times you know maybe I go to a hospital and it's so much emotionally for me to take in. I don't know how to handle myself when somebody's sitting 2 feet away from me and they're so broken. It forces me to look at myself in my life. So when we are dealing with the solution, I'll say, okay, I'm sitting with someone and they see that there's a problem, okay,
Mhm.
and that would be the first piece is going, okay. The person says, well, maybe, okay, maybe my life is out of control to the point where I'm having difficulty with personal relationships, and maybe I can't control my emotional nature, and maybe I'm having a difficult time making a living, and even someone that does very well financially. I have attorneys and doctors and successful people in the entertainment music industry that I work with. So for them, that would be maybe a block or a hurdle to get through, because they'll go, look, I'm sitting in a $1 million house, so you can't tell me my life is out of control. But then when I get down into the soul of the matter, I go, your spirit seems restless, and you seem sad, you seem unhappy, and you seem to be unable to fix that. And
Right.
they begin to crack and they begin to break. And it's like I remember my grandfather used to break in wild horses, and every horse, he spoke to each horse in a different way. So I think the thing when we talk about the healing is that if we can slow down and sit with the person, not above the person, and to be with them. And I think it takes the person that has come through that was wounded in that way, that we begin to find each other and connect from that way. So when I sit with someone, they understand in a very short period of time that I know the pain, I know the suffering, I know that wound, I see the wound. And I will say to someone that's laying in the hospital on the bed, I will rub his chest and say, what are we going to do with all of this sadness? And they will begin to sob. They will begin to cry. And I will rub their head. We will talk, and they will begin to speak to me. And they will say things that they will, I haven't seen my family in 17 years. They will begin to tell the truth. And that truth is the medicine. That's the medicine. Getting to the truth is a series of movements, because there are so many stories between the one place and the other place. And this is where the healing begins. That is a long walk. That's some pretty long, dark hallways that I had to walk through. And the beautiful thing is, I had people come down into the dark place with me and walk with me. And they would say, what are you finding over there? And I would pick something up and say, well, I don't have a voice for this now. And they said, well, that's okay. That's all right. You can put it down and we'll come back there. Okay. Or maybe you talk about what you're holding. You're holding your heart in your hands. Tell us what's going on. And they begin to talk about all of the brokenness. And they know that I've been broken in that special way. And we begin to walk together. We have to walk together, you know? So when we talk about in the Western world, I know in many, many cultures, when someone is wounded or they've become, you know, my repeated visitations with isolation in the world bring me to this special place with you today. So that's a gift. That's now a gift that I share. You know, I begin to see the ways that I isolate myself in the world. Even just, you know, walking across the street and having a judgment or an idea or some rule I make up about how the world is supposed to be. You know, to be able to set these things aside and see myself the same as everyone. You know, the same as everyone. The man who is, yeah, the man who has wet himself in his clothes, they don't smell good, and but many times that person is more humble than the man who has the suit and the car and the house and the wife and the beautiful company that he owns and the many people that he employs. That man sleeping in the bushes is many times easier to help because he
Excellent.
knows. Yeah.
So excellent. We had Kevin from Miami sharing his experiences and defining addiction and what is addictive personality and how do we come out of it. So, yes, while someone is materialistically successful, addiction is something we have to introspect and find unless till it does bigger damage to us, to our personality, to us physically. So addiction is something when you are attached to something beyond uh, mm, beyond a level which starts damaging you personally and which
Yeah.
starts uh, uh, affecting your neighborhood. So Kevin, thank you so much for joining.
All right.
Thank you. Keep watching the
Thank
Policy Time.